Ultimate Muscle, Legends vs New Generation for Nintendo Gamecube. This game's been recommended to me countless times by folks on YouTube, so I decided to give it a shot for today's video. This game was developed by whacky Corporation, the same heroes who brought us the classic N64 wrestling games. While I don't expect Ultimate Muscle to play anything like those games, judging by screenshots and video I've looked at, I still have really high hopes. whacky also developed the Def Jam games. Those games were not strictly pro wrestling, but both Vendetta and Def Jam New York showed us that whacky were very good at adding their own twist on already established franchises outside of typical pro wrestling games. I'm expecting big things with this one, guys. I've known about the game for a long time, but I just never got around to playing it. So hopefully it's good, and hopefully it meets the standards set out in other whacky games. So, what is Ultimate Muscle? Well, we have to go all the way back to 1979 when Kinnikuman was first published in Weekly Shonen Jump. The manga is all about Suguru Kinnikuman, or King Muscle outside of Japan, a pretty goofy superhero who enters wrestling tournaments to prove he's worthy of being Prince of Planet Kinnikuman. It didn't start out strictly as a pro wrestling manga, by the way, but readers loved the wrestling aspect of the series. The original Kinnikuman manga ran from 1979 to 1987, the anime series ran from 1983 to 1986, and Kinnikuman would obtain legendary status due to its overwhelming popularity in Japan and beyond. I've only watched a few episodes of the anime in preparation for this video, and from what I gathered, it really doesn't take itself seriously at all. It's filled with comedy and ridiculous pro wrestling action, but its silliness has a certain charm to it, and I gotta say, I am interested in watching more of the original anime because it looks like a lot of fun. I'm abbreviating a terrible lot here, but if we jump ahead to 1998, a sequel to the manga was published named Kinnikuman Second Generation, or Ultimate Muscle outside of Japan. The sequel's all about Kinnikuman's son, Mantaro Kinnikuman, or Kid Muscle outside of Japan, and his journey to defeat the evil DMP organization. The DMP logo's a direct rip-off of the NWO logo, by the way. And this manga also got its own anime adaptation, of which this video game we're looking at today is based upon. The sequel anime is a little more mature than its predecessor, but not by a whole lot. It also benefits from better animation, and it's much more pretty to look at overall. But I think I'm going to watch the original series first before jumping straight to the sequel. There's characters based off real life wrestlers too. In the original manga and anime series, Terry Mann right here was based on Terry Funk, and in the sequel, Kevin M.U.S.C.L.E is a member of the DMP, obviously inspired by Kevin Nash. Again, I'm skipping over a whole lot here, and my knowledge of the manga and anime are not good. There's 9 films in total. There's those little rubber figures that sold incredibly well even in the United States and in Europe. There's a whole lot of merchandise out there to dig into. There's books, trading cards. It truly was a massive franchise that's a little overwhelming for a newcomer like myself. There's a lot of media to consume here, and I do wish I was more familiar with the whole Kinnikuman universe before I took a look at this video project, because I'm sure I'd appreciate the game a whole lot more. So do keep in mind that I'm no expert when it comes to the source material here. This video is all about covering a wrestling game, not the Kinnikuman franchise as a whole. The game's intro video is, it's absolutely insane, and I'm already looking forward to pulling off some of these ridiculous moves. We get to the title screen and you'll notice the full name of the game is Ultimate Muscle, The Kinnikuman Legacy, Legends vs New Generation. This game features characters from both the first series and second series of the manga and anime, so you've got old school characters versus the new blood. I can only imagine how much this pleased fans of the franchise. On the character select screen, you can see wrestlers from the second series on the top row, while the originals are on the bottom row. There's also a few unlockable characters here too, so for those interested, here's the entire roster. I also understand that there's a lot of spell mistakes in this game, and some of the names are completely wrong. I can't confirm nor deny that right now, but I gotta say, Dick Van Dyke is one incredible name, and whoever named this character deserves some sort of reward. There's also Checkmate, a guy who must really like playing chess, so the next time you're complaining on Twitter about bad pro wrestling gimmicks, just remember what old Checkmate was lumbered with right here. I jumped straight into my first match, and my god, I don't get a chance to think, let alone strategize or learn how to play the game. I got my ass completely handed to me in what I can only describe as a button mashing frenzy. It does not play like other wacky wrestling games as expected, although I did notice some familiar animations. This was a hopeless game of pro wrestling though. I'm going to have to go back and learn how to play properly. But I will say the cel shaded art style looks fantastic and it fits in with the source material quite well. I couldn't play the game at all, but I do like how it looks and how it's all presented. Right, let's work this out and see what's going on. On the GameCube controller, the A button performs strikes, tap once for a quick strike, hold it in for a strong strike. You can also press multiple times for a combo. Grapple moves are weird. Press A to perform a standard grapple. Press Y and X to knock your opponent up in the air. If you press Y and hold X, you'll follow your opponent up and perform a grapple move while high above the ring. This is pretty cool. And to perform Irish whips or hammer throws, you gotta press Y and then press A. The problem I have here is remembering all this when I try to play it again. The control scheme isn't terribly user friendly, even for basic attacks, and already I get the feeling that matches are going to get pretty repetitive. There isn't a lot of variety here, even though what is here looks pretty good. The X button performs a jump. While up in the air, you can press A to perform a strike, and you can also press Y to perform a grapple. Standard wrestling games don't come with a jump button, but this isn't a standard wrestling game at all. I'd actually call this more of a fighting game because you don't win via pin or submission. All you gotta do is get your opponent's health bar down to 0 in order to win a match. See those meters in the corner? The long one's your health bar, and the other little segments are for special moves. At level 1, you can perform a special strike. At level 2, you can perform a special grapple or a more powerful strike depending on who you pick. And at level 3, you can perform your special move. The special moves are absolutely insane in this game and they're a lot of fun to watch the first time around. But eventually you're going to see these animations way too many times, and trust me, the novelty wears off pretty soon. In regards to countering and blocking, you can guard strikes by holding the B button. You can counter incoming strikes by pressing B at just the right time. You can also get out of grapple situations by pressing the A button at just the right time, and again, it's going to take quite a few games to remember all this. During a match, little power-up icons are going to appear in the ring, or they'll get thrown into the ring by your partner standing on the outside. These can give you health boosts, special boosts, and things of that nature. Honestly, I just ignore them as they don't seem to make a terrible difference to the match itself. Each character has their own little pickups, but again, you can ignore these if you want and you wouldn't be missing a whole lot. So, after gaining all this knowledge, I went back for another singles match, and gonna be honest, it didn't come together all that well. I did manage to win, but I had to work pretty hard for that victory. So this is definitely a game that's going to take a bit of practice to get used to. More exhibitions followed. I continued to struggle quite a bit, so I put the difficulty down to easy, and I then found the game to be way too easy. Doesn't seem like there's a middle ground between easy and normal. Still, I got more used to the controls while playing on easy mode, and guys, I'm sorry, I really don't think this is as good as what everyone made it out to be. Again, I love how it looks, I think the characters look fantastic, and I love the scale of some of the arenas, but the things you can actually do during a match are terribly limited, and I honestly thought I was missing something, like I was somehow ignoring a key part of the game that makes it so compelling and so well revered. Maybe I should have went into this one with a better appreciation for the manga and anime. Maybe I should have got friends over for some multiplayer games. There must be something I'm missing here because I just don't think this is a game I'd ever come back to. Match types are also limited. You've got singles with a manager of sorts, tag team, tornado, and battle royals. That's it. No gimmick matches, no win stipulations, nothing. Still, I persevered and I wanted to make sure I gave Ultimate M.U.S.C.L.E a fair shot, so I completed story mode a few times and checked out what else the game has to offer. Let's take a look. It appears that not every character could be selected in story mode, but more on that later. We'll go with Kid M.U.S.C.L E for our first playthrough, and basically what we have here are a lot of little dialogue boxes that progress the story mode forward. These are all fully voiced, by the way, so that's a bonus.
Way to wrestle, kid! Look! Ramen Man's even giving you a thumbs up!
I'd rather eat some cow with rice than get a lousy thumbs up.
And each available character has their own little unique story to play through, so that's another bonus. By completing story mode, you'll unlock more characters specifically for story mode itself. So for example, once I was done with Kid Muscle, I was then able to play through King Muscle's story, and completing the game with Checkmate allowed me to play through Sunshine's story. Look at the absolute state of Sunshine, by the way. So yeah, there's enough here to keep fans of the anime and manga coming back, but it's hard to care when I don't really know much about these characters. I'm trying my best to base my opinion on the actual game itself, the core mechanics of the game, and what's available to me as a player. But again, I know I'd get way more out of this if I knew about the franchise, so your mileage may vary. It would be unfair to dismiss this all because for some die-hard fans of the source material, this game could have been like a dream come true. You get little medals or coins for completing matches and for completing story mode. The higher the difficulty, the more you learn. And these medals can be spent in vending machines where you'll purchase Kinnikuman toys. It looks like images were used of the original toys too, so this is actually pretty fascinating. Once you buy a certain amount of toys, you'll then unlock the extra characters for the game, so there's a little bit of grinding to do here, but it wouldn't take terribly long. I do like that they use pictures of the real toys here instead of 3D models and what have you. There is the possibility that you'll buy the same toys over and over again, so that is a bit of a hassle. But the toy mode gets a thumbs up from me, very cool indeed. The game also features a creation mode where you can create a character from a pretty limited amount of custom parts. Maybe there's some parts here from wrestlers who appeared in the anime, I don't know. And there's also a ton of pre-made fighters that can be selected on the usual character select menu. Just go down to recruit in the bottom left corner. Tournament mode lets you set up your own singles or tag tournaments, nothing special really. And that's about it really when it comes to modes and other things you can do outside of exhibition matches. After completing story mode a ton of times, I put the difficulty back to normal, and yeah, I had a much better time in terms of winning matches and having more competitive matches. Still, personally, it's not a game I'd recommend, and I'm genuinely curious as to why so many people recommended this over, say, Def Jam Vendetta or Def Jam New York. The art style is good, it looks even better when upscaled using the Dolphin emulator, and I did get a kick out of seeing all the crazy mid-air moves and special moves that are on offer, but to me, Ultimate Muscle feels very limited in terms of what you can actually do in the ring. There's no surprises here and no feeling of freedom within the ring. You know what to expect when you begin a match and you begin to go through the same routine for each and every bout. And while it is visually stunning for a game that originally came out in Japan at the end of 2002, it's still not a game that I personally enjoyed. I tried, guys, I really did. And I know I'm going to get a ton of harsh comments for saying that I didn't like this game too much, but I have to be honest too, it's just not as good as what I thought it would be. It's not the worst wrestling game in the world, by the way, far from it, but when it comes to Aki wrestling games, I'd actually rank this one pretty low. There's still hope though, don't be ripping me apart just yet, because a sequel, but not quite a sequel, got released for the PlayStation 2, known in North America and Europe as Galactic Wrestling featuring Ultimate Muscle. This is a curious release for sure. The gameplay is very similar to the Gamecube version, but as you can see right here, the art style has been completely changed. For those who don't like cel shaded graphics, then Galactic Wrestling might be a more suitable game, but it's also very difficult to call this a true sequel. Story mode's completely gone, which is bizarre seeing as there's so little to do in the first game, but in its place is a ton of new characters. There's over 45 people to choose from in comparison to the 20 available in Ultimate Muscle, so you're really going to have to make a choice here between art styles and whether you prefer more characters over a more story-driven video game. The difficulty levels have been fixed here too. Computer-controlled characters in Galactic Wrestling are nowhere near as merciless as those found in the GameCube game, so I'd actually recommend this one for newcomers or those who just want to play the game strictly for the wrestling and nothing more. With more character variety comes more move variety. Every character's been given a few new grapple moves. You can now pin your opponent. A range of submission moves have also been added, and we get a ton of new wacky special moves to laugh at too. You can now select barbed wire ropes or electrocuted ropes, which make Irish whips a bit more dangerous. You've also got some new venues, although not all were carried over from the GameCube game. And away from the wrestling ring, we can once again collect toys and unlock new characters by gaining these fun little images. This is all going to come down to personal preference. The perfect mix for me would have been the cel shaded graphics along with gameplay and roster from the PS2 version, but if you couldn't care less about how the game looks overall, I'd probably recommend you check out the offering available available on PlayStation. I'm sure fans of the manga and anime would disagree, but again, we're strictly looking at games here, not which one's more faithful to the source material. I then noticed the version was released for PSP, and this, my friends, is it. This is what I consider the best version of Ultimate M.U.S.C.L.E. However, there are a few caveats that stop it from being perfect. Again, it's a case of gaining a few new things while missing out on others. What I found great about this version is the fact that the grapple system's been completely reworked, as in there's actual grapple states before pulling off moves. This changes the game a lot and it makes it feel like a more traditional wrestling game, which I would personally prefer. You also get the additional characters, you also get a story mode. Basically, it's like an extended version of the PS2 game, but you get way more content, and I feel the action in the ring is a lot better. Two problems though, the first being how it looks overall. Remember, this is a PSP game, and also remember you're seeing upscale footage right here, so it's not as pretty as the PS2 version, never mind the original GameCube release. Secondly, this game was only released in Japan, so you've got the language barrier to put up with, which can be tricky. Every Ultimate M.U.S.C.L.E. game has pros and cons, but I don't think the perfect version was ever released. Alright, that's Ultimate M.U.S.C.L.E. and Galactic Wrestling covered. I will admit to enjoying them a little more as I played more matches, but I can't see myself ever going back to them anytime soon. I wanted to check out the other Kinnikuman games though, just to see if there was something I would enjoy, and yes, I found something pretty amazing while partaking in this journey. Let's look at some of the other games first of all. You may remember M.U.S.C.L.E. Tag Team Match on the NES. Mattel gained the license to bring Kinnikuman rubber toys to North America with the name M.U.S.C.L.E, standing for Millions of Unusual Small Creatures Lurking Everywhere. And this toy line helped folks recognize the characters in the M.U.S.C.L.E. Tag Team Match game on NES. It's incredibly basic, but it is playable, unlike other wrestling games on Nintendo's popular system. Over in Japan, this was released for the Famicom Disk System, and this one's a side-scrolling action game. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm sure I will after watching more anime episodes. This was followed up with a spin-off game featuring Ramen Man for the Famicom, and no, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. We've got Ramen Man starring in a hybrid point-and-click game where you can also control the main character as he walks around doing, I don't know, Ramen Man things. The language barrier stopped me from playing longer than 5 minutes. The stars of Kinnikuman also appeared in Famicom Jump, Hero Ritsuden, along with other characters found within the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump. This is a top-down RPG where the character gets pulled into a Shonen Jump magazine, and yeah, again, I have no idea what's going on. Kinnikuman Dirty Challenger was released in Japan for the Super Famicom, and this one plays more like a traditional 2D fighter. I got my ass kicked during the first game, and it does play tremendously slow, but I do like the inclusion of the commentators right here, especially in this prison level. Kinnikuman The Dream Match was released for Game Boy, and it's fine, not great but not terrible either. It's better than a lot of WWF's offerings on Game Boy, that's for sure. And then 2 games were released for the Wonder Swan in Japan, Chojin Coliseum and Dream Tag Match. In Coliseum we've got some turn-based combat with some pretty good artwork, and Dream Tag Match is a remake of the classic M.U.S.C.L.E. tag team game for the NES, so good stuff. Things started picking up with Ultimate M.U.S.C.L.E. Path of the Superhero for Game Boy Advance. Finding good wrestling games on the GBA is difficult for me because I absolutely hate the WWF games released for Nintendo's handheld. And what do you know, I actually found myself enjoying this one quite a bit. Your grapples are all time-based, but it's made very clear when you're supposed to press buttons to pull off moves. It looks pretty good too, and seeing as it's in English, I had no issues understanding what was going on. I thought this was going to be the peak of the Kinnikuman games, and it wasn't going to get any better than this. But then, holy shit, Kinnikuman M.U.S.C.L.E. Grand Prix 1 and 2 for the PlayStation 2, developed by whacky, and this is where it's at, folks. These were originally arcade games, they only made it to home console over in Japan, but my god, these games are very, very good. Now, I wouldn't call the Grand Prix series wrestling games, these are fighting games with wrestling moves thrown in, but these play brilliantly, and I'd absolutely love someone to cover these with a bit more depth, and I'd love someone to actually do these games justice in a video review. I'm looking at you, Mr. Matt McMuscles. You've got an attack button, a throw button, a special button, and a guard button. You're going to pull off insane special moves by filling up that bar below your health meter. The more bars you fill, the more crazier stuff you can do during a match. Moves are pulled off with traditional quarter circle or half circle motions, but some of the bigger specials require a bit more work, of course. The first Grand Prix on PS2 has a story mode with loads of cutscenes, while the second game adds a ton of new characters and a slightly updated fighting system. The second Grand Prix also includes classic games from the Famicom as an added bonus, but you're probably going to ignore all that in favour of the pretty excellent one-on-one matches you'll have in the main game. It really is terrible that these games didn't get localized, and it's a shame the games don't get talked about all that often. Even finding move lists and FAQs online can be pretty tricky when checking up in the usual places, but stumbling across the Grand Prix games made this whole video worthwhile in my opinion, and I do hope it encourages more people to take a look at them, especially those who enjoy fighting games. They look like they require a lot of patience, a lot of time in the lab working out combos and juggles, but I can tell it would be a very rewarding experience after just playing the games for a few hours. Well, Ultimate Muscle for Gamecube and Galactic Wrestling on PS2 wasn't for me, but I did find something else that I thought was pretty great. Let me know in the comments what I've missed here. Let me know why you enjoyed the Ultimate Muscle games that I didn't. If you're a fan of the franchise, let me know what else I should look into before indulging on the manga and anime. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Take care.